From the Toronto Star, I'm Saba Eitizaz, and this matters. Do you want to know what comes up if you type 2020 on a Google search bar? Unprecedented, challenging, tough, roller coaster. These are the top search words that define this year for most of us. We are all battered by grim headlines, horrifying statistics, and deep uncertainty over the coronavirus pandemic, and we're all trying to find something that can lift our spirits. And I know we will probably not be looking back at 2020 with great fondness, because it's kind of hard to see past the deluge of devastating news. But there is also quite a bit of good news in the world right now. And we're going to bring you some of that good stuff in today's episode. Joining me today is the Star's digital producer, Andy Macdonald, who started our very own Good News section. And we're going to talk about some of the things that made us smile on this feel-good episode of This Matters, because I think we could all really use a break. Hi, Andy. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How's COVID quarantine life been treating you?
It's all right. I mean, there's other people out there who are doing worse, but it gives me time to, dive into some projects. And I bought myself some new pajamas. And so that's cozy. And I'm getting by, in my way.
I was going to say my sweats and hoodie collection has increased exponentially since this pandemic started.
For sure. Everything more comfortable. That's my motto.
So I have to admit, Andy, I actually didn't know that we had an entire section dedicated to good news at the Star. So tell me a little bit more about the goods. What's the section all about?
Yeah. So basically, it's every Monday. It comes out on Monday mornings. So every week at the end of the week, I compile basically like a top 10 list, I guess, of these stories that just kind of strike a chord as like feel good, warm fuzzies, cute, quirky, anything that sort of like falls into the category of not bad news, it's good news. And stories where, somebody has moved the needle in the right direction. That's always uplifting to hear that something is advancing. So, I keep an eye out for those stories for that good feel quality. And I compile it all and put it together.
And I think it's much needed. I feel in these polarizing and difficult times, good is not something a lot of people sort of associate with the news, right? So tell me a little bit more about your motives. How did you come up with it? Why?
Well, it basically kind of started with just having conversations with my friends, talking about bringing us joy in these times, because all of the conversations were just, oh my God, COVID. Oh my God, this. Oh my God, that. And that's all of our conversation because we were locked down. We're stuck in our houses. We have nothing to do. It was just like all consuming. And, I was talking to my friend about, a story that while the humans are away, the animals are going to play. And so because people haven't been in spaces that these animals are taking over, and they were just adorable. They were just goats in these Welsh towns, just taking over the streets. There was wild boars in Spain. And here in Toronto, we had the foxes down by the beach. So it's just all these stories were just pretty cute. And so it was just, we noted that it was finally something that we're talking about that has to do with the pandemic. But it's not really. It was just something lighthearted that we were able to talk about. And we really appreciated that. So, and I had also read that Google searches for the term good news were at like an all-time high.
Really?
Like ever since, it's never seen this amount of searches since Google began. So clearly people had an appetite for good news.
Clearly, everybody's looking out for that inspiration and joy in this weird time. 2020 has been quite bad with all that's happened. And if you look at some of these good news stories, it feels like it may be getting a bad rap, but there's some good stuff happening too. So let's get to some of the stories that you've been covering. What's the quirkiest happy story that stands out to you from this year, from your section?
I really enjoyed Alex Boyd, our reporter in Alberta. However, she was reporting on a story in Vancouver about actor John Cryer filming in Vancouver and was walking in the rain, and somehow his wedding ring slipped off of his hand, and he tried to find it. And also he was posting the entire thing on social media. So everybody was just along for the ride, like what's going to happen with his wedding ring. And he got a response really quickly from this person who is a ring sleuth. He finds people's jewelry for them, finds people's rings for them, because I guess this is a pretty common thing. So he swooped in to the rescue, and, it was all playing out over social media, and he found it.
Wow.
Almost immediately. And, John Cryer was overjoyed, and it was pretty adorable. So
That's amazing. I didn't even know that ring sleuth was an actual job. This is a thing that people do.
Yeah, me neither. Now I know. Now the world knows.
Yeah, same here. We'll be right back. We were talking about this earlier before we did this interview, and you did mention Dolly Parton as one of your motivating forces to do this. What about that? Do you have a Dolly Parton pandemic story to share with us? I'm sure there has to be one.
Well, yeah. I mean, Dolly Parton is a honky-tonk angel.
She's a hero.
I love a bit of Dolly.
Who doesn't?
She doesn't normally take out any kind of like partisan opinions, but during this pandemic, she has spoke out about Black Lives Matter, which earned her a mural in Nashville with her words on it. She put out an early Christmas special because people needed to feel good. And, she donated a whole whack of money to vaccine research because it was a lot of money. And that was amazing. And, there was even someone out there who wrote a parody song for it to the tune of Jolene. And it was like, vaccine, vaccine, vaccine. Vaccine, I'm begging of you, please don't go in my arm.
I was going to find a clip for that, but I'm really glad you just sang that for us. It's even better.
So cute.
She's a pandemic hero as expected. And there have been a lot of heroes that we might not know of during these strange times. When it's a difficult time, you see the worst of humanity coming out, but you also see the best. And I've been seeing so much people willing to help each other through so much, people wanting to connect. There have been Facebook groups popping up, to help communities. And I was recently looking at this campaign that's kind of ongoing to send Christmas cards to a long-term care home in Ontario, which is kind of picking up. And they were talking about how there's thousands of cards they're getting every day now from not just in Canada, but all over the world, which is perhaps a story for you for later on, Andy. But other than that, what other stories, can you think of any examples that you've seen that have inspired you during this pandemic? Some good, happy stories that you've covered on that?
There's a lot of people who are, using their services for good, helping frontline workers. Like there was a cleaning company that was offering free deep cleans to frontline workers, which if you know any frontline workers, a lot of nurses, they take care of other people, but they don't take care of themselves. It's kind of a common trait in nurses. So that kind of thing would go a long way for, self-care. And that was just an incredible thing that they would do, especially since, a lot of cleaning companies have probably lost a bit of business too because of this.
Yeah, it's been a bad time.
People don't want other people in their homes at this point. So I just think that kind of thing is incredible. And there's so many stories about people taking what they have and donating it back and giving back to the community. That's what the human spirit's all about.
Yeah, you got to step up for each other, right? And what I also found particularly cool was the unique ways that we've been trying to find to still feel human and to connect with each other at a time when technically we're all isolated. And I do recall that you had a story about two very determined school buddies trying to do just that. And this was around the time when there were school closures and other challenges, right?
Yeah, it was just right at the beginning. There was two little boys who normally during school, a younger student and an older student are paired together for story time and reading. And they obviously couldn't do that. But, they could do it over Zoom, but they chose to just do it over their fence, their neighbors. And so, just the pictures alone were just adorable of them, sitting there over this wood fence. These two little kids are just like peering over the fence and it's just so cute. But yeah, they had story time every day and were reading to each other. And it's just a really great way to overcome the limits of the lockdown and still be able to connect without, touching and everything. It was just a human way to connect together and also to incorporate it into the school curriculum, which was, kind of all going to hell at that point. So, yeah.
That's very sweet to know, especially when you think of younger kids, they're more like into the digital way of connecting. And these two kids appreciated the value of like in-person, but safe, socially distanced human interaction, which they found an innovative way to do that. Also, I feel in this time, humor is also kind of important, and I get through stuff by trying to find comedy in even like the dark spaces. And that's probably war zone reporter mentality. But what about overall? Did we have anything to laugh about this year? Any funny or weird stories?
Yeah, I mean, just animals are hilarious in general. And I do love a good animal story, especially when they're super weird. Or even, those ones where it's like super Canadian, like a moose went through the drive-through at Tim Hortons. Everybody loves those stories. I feel like that's a pretty common story. It's just like one of those like, oh my gosh, this is so Canadian. But there was a town in the outback of Australia that had a bit of an emu problem.
Please explain. You must.
They were running amok. They were stealing foods, like poking their head into people's kitchen windows and stealing toast out of their toaster, just, being sneaky. And they're named Carol and Kevin. And I just love that they're Carol and Kevin because it just seems like some kind of weird comedy duo.
Like from a sitcom, like an emu problem.
Yeah, exactly. I'd watch that Australian comedy.
Same.
But they learned how to climb the steps at their local pub.
Oh, no. Everybody needs a drink.
And so obviously the pub owner didn't want, these thieving emus anywhere in their midst. So had publicly banned them from the pub, but put up a emu-proof barrier. But, it was much to the delight of everybody in the town, just trying to get these emus to stop coming into the pub. Just the mental image of that. I just picture, I'm probably dating myself, but Crocodile Dundee and the town where, that pub is just the pub that comes to mind. And yeah, these emus sneakily trying to get into it.
Yeah, and I like emus being officially banned from the pub, so that paints quite a picture as well. This is hilarious, Andy, and this sounds like such a rewarding experience to look at silver linings and laughter and share those kinds of stories with all of us who need it right now, right? I feel like this must give you some personal level of satisfaction as well to be able to share this kind of joy.
Yeah, I love doing it. It's just a little tiny escape every week, and it just makes me happy to put it out there. So I hope people enjoy it.
Yeah, we do appreciate it. And last but not least, Andy, do share with our listeners exactly where we can find this fun, happy stuff at the Star. Because, like I told you, I just recently came across it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, every Monday, you can find it on the website at thestar.com. Also, all of the good news, those are only, in the digest, is only 10 in the goods. However, all of the good news stories that I come across can be found at thestar.com/good-news. That's where they all live. And also it's in the Monday edition of the First Up newsletter. So in order to subscribe to First Up or any of our other newsletters, go to thestar.com/newsletters.
Well, Andy, it's been a joy talking to you. Thank you so much for your time. And I really look forward to more of the feel-good stuff coming from your side.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You take care and stay safe.
Take care. You too.
I was talking to Andy Macdonald, who's a digital producer for the Toronto Star. That's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. This Matters is hosted and produced by me, Saba Eitizaz, Adrian Chung, and Raju Mudhar. Produced and mixed by Sean Pattenden, and our director of programming is JP Fozo. Our show theme music is by So-Called, and our episode music is by Mike DeAngelis. We want to hear what stories matter to you. Please send us comments, questions, or ideas to thismatters@thestar.ca. Please consider supporting the journalism the Toronto Star newsroom does at thestar.com. And don't forget to subscribe to This Matters on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Let's talk soon.